Alright guys, so today we're going to be working on our arm rigs, and it's a fairly complicated lesson, or can be. There's a lot of constraining that's going to be happening. So I want to break this process into a couple of phases. So the first thing I want you to do is I want you to open up a blank myosine, and we're going to work on just a simple 3-joint arm rig. Okay, so hopefully the concepts are a little clearer. We're not going to have quite as much stuff clogging up our outliner as far as navigating and making sure we're selecting the right objects. And then once we understand how this process is actually working, we should be able to transfer that to our Mustachio rig setups pretty easy. Okay, so make sure your cgm.td tools is open because we're going to be using that. Okay, once that's open, go ahead and go to a panels orthographic front view. Okay, and I'm going to create a 3-joint chain. Okay, so I'm going to go to my joint tool. I'm going to create a shoulder, an elbow, and a wrist. Okay, let's go back to our perspective. I'm going to go ahead and grab my elbow, hit D on the keyboard, and I'm going to shift this back in Z space a little bit. Okay, so again, we're doing that because if we have a joint chain that doesn't have any kind of bend in it, when we create that IK, it's not going to be able to create that invisible plane that's going to tell it how to properly bend, and it's going to be a little bit unpredictable. Okay, so we're going to offset that a little bit back in the Z direction. Okay, before we go any further, let's go ahead and name these. Okay, so I'm going to open up my joint 1, 2, and 3 and call this simply base, base 0, 1, and base 0, 2. Okay, go ahead and hit Control D, select your base, hit Control D, and duplicate that entire chain. So we should have base 1, base 0, 1, base 0, 2. Let's go ahead and name this FK, FK 0, 1, and FK 0, 2. Okay, one more time, select FK or base, either or, and let's hit Control D to get that joint chain duplicated once again. And let's name this one IK, IK 0, 1, and IK 0, 2. Okay, so now we have 3 duplicate joint chains, all existing in the same world space in our scene. And basically what we're going to do is this base is going to be our bind pose joint chain. So this is going to be the one that is going to be driving our mesh. We're going to have an FK setup, or forward kinematics, so that we can grab a control, rotate, grab an elbow, rotate, so on and so forth. And we're going to have an IK setup that has just a single IK solver, a control in that IK, and we're going to be able to use IK to animate that arm. Okay, so we're going to take all of these and we're going to constrain them to our base. So basically we have a system that we can blend seamlessly between the IK joint chain, or the FK joint chain, excuse me, and the IK joint chain, all within the same base joints. Okay, so these are going to be our driven. Okay, so let's set up a couple of controls first. I'm going to start with my FK setup. Okay, so I'm going to take my base and my IK, and I'm going to hit Control H and just hide those, so that all is visible is my FK. Okay, I'm going to open up my CGM TD tools. I'm going to select my shoulder. I'm going to create a control curve, and I'm going to rotate him into place. Okay, for now I'll just be eyeballing it in. We'll be much more careful in our actual rigs. Okay, and let's name this FK shoulder CNTRL. Okay, let's take that guy and with our curve selected and hit group me. Okay, so again, that's going to take all of the transform values that we put on that control. It's going to group that object to itself. It's going to put those values onto our control group and leave nothing on our control. Alright, let's do the same thing for the elbow. So select the elbow. Let's create another circle curve. Okay, rotate him into place. And again, hit group me. Okay, let's go ahead and select our shoulder control, shift select our shoulder joint, our FK joint, and let's hit constrain orient. Let's select our elbow control in our FK elbow and hit constrain orient. Okay, so now I should be able to rotate my shoulder, and it's going to rotate the shoulder joint. I'm going to grab my elbow control and rotate it, and it should rotate the elbow. Now you can see that right now these aren't parented together, our controls. So this is still going to rotate and keep its orientation to this control and bend backwards. So we want to make sure that we have a proper hierarchy between these controls. Okay, so if I open up my FK control group, let's rename this one. FK elbow, CNTRL. FK elbow, CNTRL. And let's make sure we put GRP. FK elbow, control, GRP. Okay, then I'm going to select that elbow control group. I'm then going to select my shoulder control, and I'm going to hit P and parent that underneath. So we should have our shoulder control group, our shoulder control, elbow control group, elbow control. So now when I grab my shoulder, it's going to rotate this control group along with it, and then I can move my elbow. Okay, so things look like they're deforming properly, which is good. Okay, so that is done for now. So let's go ahead and close some of these things up. Let's select our FK and hit Control H to hide. And now let's set up our IK chain. So I'm going to select my IK and hit Shift H to show those joints. Okay, now it looks exactly the same, but this is our IK setup, so these controls aren't going to move anything. Okay, and with our IK selected, let's go ahead and go to Skeleton, Create IK Handle. Make sure we go to our Options and check that Rotate Plane Solver is selected. Okay, I'm going to select my shoulder, my wrist, and create that IK chain. Okay, so we've got an IK handle, and when I move it around, make sure that it is moving properly, which it is, so it's driving our joint chain now. Okay, and then I'm going to create a control that's going to have the IK handle constrained to it so that we don't have to grab that IK handle to animate. Okay, so I'll just grab that end joint, go back to my TD tools, and create another circle. Okay, let's rotate him into place. Once again, hit Group Me. Okay, make sure we rename. So IK control group. IK control. Okay, so let's select that IK control. Let's select our IK handle, and let's do a point constraint. Okay, so that IK handle should be point constrained to our IK control. So when we select our control and move it around, it should move with it. So check to make sure that it does. Okay, undo a couple times. Okay, so now I've got my IK my IK system set up. I've got my FK system set up. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take each of the joints in our IK and FK joint chains, and we're going to constrain our base 01, and base 02 joints to them. So that we want FK driving the orientation of our base joints, and we want IK driving the orientation between our base joints, and that will allow us to blend between them with both of those constraints. Okay, so here's where it can get a little bit tricky. So we need to make sure that we open these three up. I'm actually going to go ahead and I'll just show FK and my base. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to constrain FK and base, FK01 to base 01, and FK02 to base 02. Okay, after we're done with that, we're going to constrain IK to base, IK01 to base 01, IK02 to base 02. Okay, so let's go ahead and step through that. So we're going to select our FK first, control select base, go to constrain, orient. Let's select FK01 and then base 01 and go to constrain, orient. And then let's do FK02 to base 02 and go to constrain, orient. Okay, now let's go to IK and select our base, constrain orient, IK01 to base01, constrain orient, and then IK02 to base02, constrain orient. Okay, now if all works well, we should be able to grab our IK control and move him over. Oh, and it looks like we've got something breaking just a tad here. Okay, so let's go ahead and diagnose what we got going on. Okay, so let me check these out real quick. I'm going to step through these just to make sure that I've done the proper constraints. Orient, orient, orient. Aha. So I think I selected these actually out of order on my FK setup. Well, let's just go ahead and make sure. I'm going to select my elbow and rotate. So that's working well. Select my shoulder and rotate. So it looks like it's a problem with my shoulder. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause the video and figure this out real quick and come back and I'll explain to you guys why this is not working.